Protesters across the country have been showing up to Tesla dealerships and showrooms, unhappy with Elon Musk and the government cuts made through the Department of Government Efficiency.
The glass showroom cracked, the first car was keyed, and Elon Musk's empire began to melt in real time. On live stream, on TikTok, on the stock exchange. Not because of a recall or a battery failure or a missed delivery window. At first, it looked like static, a few angry tweets, a canceled pre-order, a protester holding a sign in front of a Tesla dealership. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. Then something snapped. This collapse had nothing to do with hardware. It was about trust, the kind of trust that can't be repaired with a software update. One day, Musk was the future. The next, he was the villain. And by the end of this story, you'll understand how the world's most famous innovator became the most powerful symbol of betrayal. One showroom, one tweet, and one country at a time. Canada's economic torpedo. In a surprise late-night move, the Canadian government imposed a 100% tariff on all Tesla electric vehicles imported into the country. Overnight, every Tesla in Canada doubled in price, instantly transforming dealerships into ghost towns. This wasn't just an economic policy shift. It was a targeted act of retaliation aimed directly at Elon Musk. Canada's action extended beyond vehicles. The government simultaneously canceled a $66 million Starlink satellite internet contract, critical to connecting Canada's remote northern communities. Starlink, Musk's ambitious satellite project, was supposed to symbolize global connectivity and the boundless potential of his technological empire. Instead, Canada turned it into collateral damage in an escalating diplomatic conflict. Behind closed doors, Canadian officials candidly described their decisions as a direct response to Musk's political alliances, especially his support for American protectionist policies that hurt Canadian industries. They weren't simply defending their economy, they were sending a message to Musk and, by extension, to American economic nationalism itself. This strike set an example. Canada's bold action demonstrated to other nations that Musk's empire wasn't invincible, that even the richest man in the world had vulnerabilities. The move reverberated globally, resonating in capitals across Europe, Asia, and Australia. Yet, even as governments calculated their next moves, an equally devastating crisis unfolded in corporate boardrooms thousands of miles away. Wall Street runs for the exit. Wall Street sensed trouble immediately. Major investors didn't wait, they fled. Vanguard quietly began dumping Tesla shares. BlackRock followed swiftly, liquidating its holdings with alarming urgency. Kimball Musk, Elon's own brother, sold millions of dollars worth of Tesla stock, amplifying the panic. These weren't ordinary market fluctuations. This was abandonment. Behind boardroom doors and glass-walled offices, private calls painted a grim picture. Investors, once charmed by Musk's visionary confidence, now recoiled from his growing political volatility. Tesla's value plummeted by tens of billions of dollars, erasing years of market trust within days. Wall Street's analysts whispered what investors dared not voice openly. Musk had become too unpredictable, too polarizing, and dangerously overexposed. Tesla's carefully cultivated image of stability and innovation was unraveling rapidly. Institutional investors, who had championed Musk as the modern Edison, abandoned him in droves, signaling to smaller investors that Tesla was no longer safe. Stock tickers plunged relentlessly downward, echoing across trading floors in New York and Silicon Valley. While Tesla's public downfall captivated headlines, another crisis, hidden but equally severe, was already underway, silently dismantling Musk's ambitious dreams. Starlink quietly dies while no one watches. Starlink, once hailed as Musk's masterstroke, faced collapse quietly, overshadowed by Tesla's public meltdown. Initially designed as a network to deliver high-speed internet to underserved global regions, Starlink relied heavily on government partnerships and contracts. Canada's abrupt cancellation of the $66 million deal was merely the first in a series of crippling blows. Following Canada's lead, European governments paused negotiations. Germany, France, and the United Kingdom reconsidered Starlink's role in national infrastructure projects. In Australia, rural broadband initiatives pivoted away from Musk's satellites, while Southeast Asian nations hastily reviewed existing agreements, wary of political fallout. Starlink's financial forecasts quickly deteriorated, plunging over 40% in revised revenue projections. Internally, Starlink executives desperately sought to renegotiate terms, only to find doors closing at every turn. Government partners increasingly viewed Starlink not as a revolutionary tool, but as a risky political liability. Musk's public controversies had poisoned Starlink's image, undermining its credibility and destabilizing vital relationships. Contracts unraveled one after another, bleeding Starlink's balance sheet dry. Once championed as the ultimate global connector, Starlink's ideological vision collapsed into a cautionary tale of ambition, colliding with political reality. This wasn't merely the failure of a business model, it was the fracturing of Musk's entire worldview. So we dug through global contracts, tariff records, and satellite funding trails to show you what really took down Starlink. Now you've got the full picture. No fluff, no headlines, just the truth behind Musk's collapse. And if that saved you time, hit subscribe. That's all we ask. Starlink's silent collapse signaled more than financial losses. It marked the start of an irreversible shift against Musk, one that would escalate from boardrooms and balance sheets to streets and factories worldwide. Musk's technological empire wasn't just weakening, it was facing a rebellion, fueled not merely by economic interests, but by deeply felt anger and betrayal from the people who had once supported him most fervently. The cash burn, nobody could stop. Tesla wasn't losing money, it was hemorrhaging it. On the surface, it looked like a bold market correction. In reality, it was a slow-motion collapse disguised as strategy. Elon Musk had one plan to stop the bleeding: slash prices. Cut deep enough, fast enough, and maybe the company could stimulate demand before anyone noticed the rot underneath. But what started as a calculated discounting play quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous: a desperate race against the balance sheet. The discounts came fast and heavy. Tesla models across North America, Europe, and Asia saw sweeping price reductions, in some cases exceeding $10,000 per unit. Sales temporarily jumped, but not enough. The cost of each vehicle still rolled off the production line higher than the price customers were paying. Tesla wasn't just undercutting the competition, it was undercutting itself. Margins, once the envy of the global auto industry, collapsed almost overnight. Analysts watched as once healthy figures of 20% profit per vehicle plummeted to single digits. Some models were reportedly being sold at near break-even points. Operational expenses, however, did not follow the same trend. They soared. Factory expansions in Texas and Berlin fell behind schedule and over budget. Legal battles over autopilot claims piled up. Research and development, still chasing the dream of full autonomy, continued to consume billions. Musk refused to cut back. He insisted the future had to be built now, or Tesla would have no future at all. Behind the scenes, panic set in. Suppliers began requesting advance payments. Accountants scrambled to reforecast earnings. Regional sales teams were given impossible quotas to hit without the financial support to back them. Then came the most terrifying realization: Starlink could no longer bail them out. Starlink, once Tesla's financial backstop, was no longer growing fast enough to cross-subsidize the losses. After Canada terminated its $66 million government deal, other nations followed. The pipeline of reliable government money was drying up. Revised projections showed that Starlink's expected 40% revenue growth had evaporated in a matter of months. Cash reserves that had once been seen as an emergency cushion were suddenly a runway with no clear endpoint. By the end of the fiscal year, Tesla's available cash had fallen below the comfort threshold. For a company its size, Wall Street began whispering the word no tech giant ever wants to hear: insolvency. The once untouchable empire was now on life support. Tesla had become a cautionary tale of growth without guardrails, momentum without discipline. However, collapsing margins and burning cash were only symptoms. The real illness was something deeper, something far more personal. The world wasn't just abandoning the company, it was preparing to confront the man behind it. The political targeting of Musk begins. Musk wasn't caught in a trade war, he was the war. The economic backlash unfolding against Tesla was not accidental or incidental. It was precise, targeted, and intentional. One country after another began framing their economic policies, not just around trade principles, but around one man's growing political entanglements. It started with Canada. A 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles didn't just erase the brand's competitiveness, it effectively declared the company persona non grata. At the same time, Ottawa ripped up the $66 million Starlink agreement without fanfare. This was not economic tinkering. This was retaliation. Behind closed doors, Canadian trade officials were blunt. Tesla's tariff wasn't about fairness, it was about leverage. Tesla had become the most visible symbol of American protectionism and Trump-aligned tech dominance. By striking Musk, Canada sent a message directly to the White House. The era of consequence-free economic aggression was over. The symbolism didn't stop at tariffs. Diplomatic briefings began referring to Musk by name. Leaked memos from European policy circles described Tesla as a politically compromised brand. In Asia, regulators began reviewing contracts with phrases like risk of ideological entanglement. Musk was no longer viewed as just an entrepreneur. He had become a proxy for everything the global establishment wanted to push back against: economic nationalism, regulatory defiance, and technological arrogance. Musk didn't help himself. His social media antics, provocative statements, and growing alliance with right-wing figures only deepened the sense that Tesla was no longer neutral ground. Countries looking to retaliate against the United States found the perfect target in Musk, a billionaire whose companies relied on global goodwill, yet constantly undermined it with political posturing. But if targeting Musk diplomatically and financially was calculated, the next wave would be something else entirely. Across the ocean, the backlash against Tesla wasn't being handled in boardrooms or policy centers. It was about to hit the streets. Europe's fury erupts. Europe didn't regulate Tesla. They went to war with it. In cities that once embraced the brand as the future of clean mobility, the mood had shifted. Tesla showrooms became battlefields. Dealerships were vandalized, show cars were torched, and slogans condemning Musk's politics were scrawled across smashed windows. This wasn't protest. It was performance. Europe wasn't just reacting to Tesla's policies. It was trying to purge the brand from its culture. The most direct assault came from governments. In Germany, subsidies for electric vehicle buyers were rescinded selectively. Tesla customers found themselves stripped of support, while legacy automakers like Volkswagen and Renault kept their benefits. France froze safety certifications for new Tesla deliveries, pending regulatory review, effectively halting sales in key urban zones. These weren't procedural delays. They were sanctions cloaked in bureaucracy. The imagery was impossible to ignore. In Lyon, a Tesla showroom was reduced to blackened glass and twisted steel after activists set it ablaze. In Berlin, the Gigafactory faced rolling blockades from environmental groups who accused Musk of greenwashing. Graffiti turned Tesla logos into imperial eagles. Social media campaigns flooded the internet with hashtags calling for a Tesla exit from the European Union. Behind this outrage was something more than just politics. Europe saw in Tesla a reflection of American excess, fast growth, loud ambition, and disregard for collective norms. Musk's provocations made it easy to conflate Tesla with the worst instincts of Silicon Valley. For European regulators, punishing Tesla was a chance to reassert control. For protesters, it was theater with global stakes. And while the backlash in Europe was brutal, Tesla still had one last stronghold: its most profitable empire. But on the other side of the world, that final outpost was already beginning to crumble. China pulls the plug. Tesla's most profitable empire crumbled in a single decision. Beijing didn't need fire or protest. It simply changed the rules. One day, Tesla was a darling of Chinese industrial policy. The next, it was a liability too costly to keep propping up. The shift began quietly. Subsidies disappeared. Compliance burdens rose. Then came the statement from the Ministry of Commerce. Tesla would no longer qualify for state-backed financing or procurement. It was a death sentence issued without ceremony. The Shanghai Gigafactory, once a jewel of the company's global strategy, was now a geopolitical pawn with no protection. Behind closed doors, Chinese officials expressed growing unease. Musk's alignment with Donald Trump, his antagonistic rhetoric about Chinese tech, and his refusal to play by Beijing's diplomatic playbook had made Tesla a strategic risk. The government responded not with headlines, but with silence. Contracts were canceled. Regulatory inspections intensified. Domestic competitors like Build Your Dreams and NIO received fast-track support. Tesla didn't just lose subsidies, it lost access. Data policies were rewritten to complicate over-the-air updates. Software approval timelines doubled. Chinese media campaigns subtly encouraged consumers to buy local, framing Tesla as an unreliable foreign entity. For years, Tesla had relied on China to maintain its revenue stability. It was the engine that kept the stock price afloat, the lifeline when Western markets stalled. Now that engine had stalled. The largest, most profitable market in the world had decided it no longer needed Elon Musk. Tesla's global collapse was no longer theoretical. It had gone operational. And now, with its three major regions, North America, Europe, and Asia, slipping through its fingers, the question was no longer what went wrong. It was, how much worse can this get? The Trump gambit backfires. Musk made a political bet and lost his entire base. Tesla was never just a car brand. It was a belief system, a cultural identity, a symbol of progress for buyers who thought they were changing the world one silent mile at a time. From California to Copenhagen, Tesla stood for a cleaner future, bold, global, and undeniably modern. But that image shattered the moment Elon Musk made a calculated political move. He aligned himself with Donald Trump. This was no accident or slip of the tongue. It was a full public embrace. Musk echoed Trump's talking points, posed for cameras, and engaged with an administration infamous for rolling back environmental protections and embracing fossil fuel loyalty. For many, this was a betrayal of everything Tesla had claimed to represent. Progressive Tesla owners, techies, climate advocates, urban professionals felt duped. In cities where Tesla had dominated, sales began to dip. Pre-order cancellations mounted. Online communities erupted in outrage. People removed their Tesla badges. Some sold their cars in protest. Others stayed quiet, but they never forgot. In Europe, the backlash was worse. In countries like Germany and the Netherlands, where right-wing associations carry deep social consequences, Tesla's brand collapsed almost overnight. Musk wasn't just seen as hypocritical, he was seen as dangerous. A man who once spoke about planetary salvation was now shaking hands with a man many believed was accelerating its destruction. And this shift wasn't subtle. Late-night comedians stopped praising him. Journalists became skeptical. Investors, once enchanted by his charisma, started questioning his judgment. The Tesla brand had become political poison, not because of product failure, but because of who led it. But the damage Musk caused didn't stop at politics. The deeper betrayal came from something far more literal and far more lethal. The self-driving lie exposed. Musk didn't just overpromise, he oversold danger. For years, Elon Musk made bold promises about autonomy. He claimed Teslas would soon drive themselves, park themselves, and even make money for their owners while they slept. He made it sound inevitable, unstoppable, and millions believed him. Full self-driving wasn't just a feature, it was a promise of the future. Musk said the software would be so advanced, it would leave every other car company in the dust. Customers paid thousands of dollars in advance. Beta testers signed up eagerly. Faith in Musk translated into dollars and data. And then the crashes began. Real crashes, fatal crashes. Pedestrians struck, families devastated. The very software that was supposed to save lives began to take them. Investigations followed. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration launched a probe. Then the United States Department of Justice got involved. The issue was no longer hype, it was harm. Whistleblowers leaked emails. Engineers had raised concerns internally, warning of software limitations, but they were ignored. The system had gone public before it was ready, and people paid the price. The lawsuits piled up. Headlines grew darker. Public trust eroded. The man once hailed as the future of transportation was now being accused of fraud, deception, and recklessness. This wasn't just about a faulty feature. It was about a broken promise. The emotional investment people had made in Tesla wasn't just financial, it was personal. They believed Musk when he said he would change the world. But now many were starting to realize he had used that belief for money, for power, for control. And just as public trust in Tesla's software collapsed, the next supposed game changer turned into a spectacle no one saw coming. Cybertruck becomes a meme and a disaster. It was supposed to be a revolution. It became a punchline. The Cybertruck launch was pure chaos. The reveal had shattered glass, awkward laughs, and viral clips. But Musk didn't flinch. He claimed it was the future of trucks. Orders poured in. The internet lit up. It seemed like another classic Musk marketing victory. But when deliveries started, the fantasy fell apart. Early models were plagued with problems. Steering issues, clunky software, weak performance, inflated prices. Crash tests exposed structural concerns. Reviewers were brutal, customers were disappointed, and Tesla had to recall some of the first units. Then came the memes. The Cybertruck looked more like a bad video game asset than a vehicle. It was mocked relentlessly online, compared to rejected movie props and children's toys. Traditional truck buyers laughed it off. Even hardcore Tesla fans cringed. The truck had failed to win over any audience. It didn't appeal to tech lovers or truck owners. Instead of symbolizing the next frontier, it became a symbol of overreach, an overpriced monument to ego. Musk had said it would change transportation forever. It did, just not in the way he'd hoped. And while public opinion mocked the Cybertruck, something more serious was happening behind closed doors. The workers walk out. Musk built an empire, but lost the people who made it possible. Tesla's collapse didn't just unfold online. It happened in factory parking lots, empty meeting rooms, and mass email threads announcing layoffs. It started quietly, just a few resignations. But then it accelerated. Tesla laid off nearly 15% of its global staff. Some employees found out by email. Others simply lost access to internal systems overnight. Morale tanked. Productivity plummeted. Former loyalists began leaking stories of toxic culture, surveillance, and burnout. The innovation Tesla once bragged about was gone, replaced with fear, secrecy, and exhaustion. Meanwhile, rivals moved in. Rivian, Lucid, BYD all began recruiting Tesla's best talent. Engineers left with proprietary knowledge. Designers walked out with portfolios filled with unreleased concepts. What was once Musk's greatest strength, his workforce, was now walking out the door. Inside the company, trust was gone. Outside, customers and investors were growing wary. Tesla's identity had always been its people. But with the layoffs and resignations, the company became a shell of its former self. The factories were still running. The websites were still live, but the spirit was gone. Tesla was no longer the place where the future was built. It was the place where the dream died. And while Elon Musk was still on stage trying to win back attention, a new kind of momentum was rising, one that wouldn't just challenge Tesla's dominance, it would erase it. The new kings take the throne. Tesla's collapse left a vacuum, and the wolves rushed in. Within weeks of Tesla's market implosion and Starlink's unraveling, competitors launched a full-scale takeover that looked less like a transition and more like a siege. Build Your Dreams, the once overlooked Chinese electric vehicle giant, surged across global markets, armed with cheaper prices, better build quality, and none of the political baggage. Rivian Automotive, once playing catch-up, capitalized on Tesla's fall by recruiting former Tesla engineers and repackaging their playbook into something cleaner, calmer, and far more appealing. In North America, General Motors and the Ford Motor Company finally shed their outdated reputations, presenting electric vehicles that felt both cutting-edge and grounded in something consumers trusted. On the satellite front, the collapse of Starlink's government contracts left the skies wide open. Canadian and European telecom companies moved fast, offering satellite internet alternatives with a critical advantage: political neutrality. For governments burned by Musk's erratic behavior and high-profile scandals, neutrality was more than a feature. It was the foundation for every new infrastructure deal. South Korea, Australia, and the United Kingdom rewrote procurement standards specifically to exclude companies with known political affiliations, effectively blacklisting Starlink without ever naming it. In response, new coalitions emerged: telecom alliances backed by public trust, local manufacturing, and stability over spectacle. Even the language changed. Where disruption once dominated headlines, leaders began using words like resilience, transparency, and democratic infrastructure. Elon Musk's collapse wasn't just an opportunity for competitors to rise. It was a chance for nations to rewrite the rules, reassert control over digital territory, and reclaim economic sovereignty. Yet, as the companies rose, another force was rising alongside them. One Musk never thought he had to worry about: the workers. The union uprising Musk never saw coming. He tried to crush labor. Now they're writing new laws. What began as whispered frustration inside Tesla's factories turned into a full-blown labor revolution once the empire crumbled. Across former Tesla and Starlink facilities in the United States and Europe, workers who had spent years under Musk's brutal conditions began organizing at a pace not seen since the industrial era. In Austin, engineers laid off during the mass exodus filed class action lawsuits and union petitions on the same day. In Berlin, factory workers backed by German labor councils overturned Tesla's non-union model in a single vote. The real shift, however, came when policymakers noticed. Legislation introduced in Michigan, California, and New York mandated baseline union representation in all electric vehicle manufacturing receiving federal support. In France and Spain, pro-labor amendments tied to new energy investment made it impossible for non-unionized plants to qualify for tax credits. The entire playbook Elon Musk used to dominate labor, long hours, stock options, and media loyalty no longer worked. Workers didn't want to gamble on a visionary anymore. They wanted protection. This movement spread fast, fueled by the symbolism of Musk's downfall. Starlink ground technicians formed their first international union. Software developers at competing electric vehicle firms wrote open letters demanding labor rights reform. Elon Musk had once been the mythic figure behind an era of progress, but now his name sparked a wave of rebellion against unchecked ambition. Still, nothing hit harder than what came next. Not lawsuits, not lost contracts, not policy shifts. The most devastating blow came from the people who had once worshipped him, not with protests or legislation, but with silence. A quiet, emotional rejection that spread further and cut deeper than any sanction. So now the question quietly lingers. What happens to a legacy when the world simply stops listening? Let's know in the comments down below. Thanks.